Welcome to the Leadership Art Podcast. I'm your host, Art Robbins, and it's great to have you join us. The Leadership Art Podcast features insightful conversations with industry leaders who lead with purpose. Here, you will discover practical insights, powerful lessons, and everyday inspiration to elevate your own impact, whether you are leading now or preparing to step up. We want to inspire you to be the best leader you can be. And today's guest is Mark Simoncelli. Mark, welcome.
Thanks, Art. I'm so privileged to be here. It's lovely to join you. I'm excited to dig into this wonderful topic of leadership.
Well, great. That's exactly what we want to do. Let me tell the audience a little bit about you. Mark is a renowned consulting executive and enterprise growth leader who has a 25-year career advising major clients globally on transforming businesses, innovating, and creating new ventures and accelerating growth. He's worked for leading firms, namely Accenture, Frost & Sullivan, and Mach 49. Mark, it's great to have you as a guest. It's no secret that we go back a long way. We've worked together for over a decade. We've mentored each other, supported each other, and personally, seeing the results you've delivered and the impact you've had on your clients, teams, and peers, I've always admired your leadership style. So I know you're going to have lots of valuable lessons for our audience. And just so our listeners know, this is actually a very opportune time to hear your thoughts because you yourself are making some notable career decisions as we speak. It'd be great to hear about where you are in your journey and also how you got to this point. Maybe that's a good place to start. Give us a little bit of your background and what has motivated you along the way to be such an impactful leader.
Thanks, Art. I really appreciate it. Once again, just so lovely to join you. As you said, you and I go back a long way, so really delighted to discuss the topic today. I'm at an interesting point in my career. I recently left Mach 49 and launched a listening and learning tour, which has been transformational. Just reaching out to my network and exploring what comes next. I wanted to be really thoughtful about making the right decisions around the next chapter in my journey. And I just got amazing input from different folks, peers in the industry. I think the first real lesson about leadership is self-awareness. It's actually taking the time to pause, reflect, listen, and receive. So one of the things I decided to do was actually to do a retreat. I worked with a business coach. His name is Stephen Burke. And we went up. I've always wanted to go to Bend, Oregon. He just structured the most wonderful agenda. So I had enough time to answer some key questions, but also had a lot of time by myself and did the most amazing hike, which really gave me a chance to just reflect in nature, think through exactly what I wanted to do next. Given that I've done a lot of work in growth, transformation, venture building, venture investing, I had a lot of folks, and I say this with humility and respect, saying to me, you really know this topic really well. Why don't you continue to work in this space? And so what I've decided to do is I'm going to launch my own company, and it's called Launchstone, which I'm really excited about, harnessing all the lessons that I've learned in venture building, venture investing, and working with clients to help build new lines of business and to leverage the tools in the toolbox that venturing presents, be it through creating new lines of business, through collaborations or partnerships, be it through capturing value, or be it through capitalizing and using investing or acquisition. So that's the plan. The name Launchstone is quite interesting. I was the MC at a wedding, a very good friend of mine from college. And the best man at the wedding a couple of years back came up to me and said, he had these two words for me, which were really powerful. And that was rock and launchpad. He doesn't know me that well, but launchpad means a lot because I've been in the startup ecosystem. Right. I've been in the venture space. So think of it as being a catalyst, an ecosystem orchestrator. That was pretty powerful. And rock means a lot to me. If you look at the Bible and you look at Peter, Caiaphas, there's a lot of power in that and identify with a lot of those lessons. And rock is about integrity, loyalty, strong foundations. And I think that's a very good way to kick off today's discussion in really looking at what is the foundation of leadership. And yes, I've always had those two words.
It's really interesting. I mean, those two words, launch and stone, stone being synonymous with rock, that really does capture you. I mean, that is Mark Simoncelli.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
It really is. I'd like to unpack some of the things you mentioned in the journey to get to the point. This is what I want to do. This is how I want to brand myself and be seen to the world. You mentioned at the very start how important self-awareness is. We've been doing a few of these episodes already, and it's no secret to the listeners that self-awareness was the number one mentioned key trait that everyone felt a leader needed to have. That you couldn't be an effective leader if you weren't aware of yourself, if you didn't have a sense of yourself and what your purpose was, what your strengths were, what your weaknesses were. And you mentioned some interesting things you did to get to that level of self-awareness. Personally, and just so the audience knows, I'm a big fan of Mark. I've always thought you were one of the most self-aware people that I know. I say that in the most positive sense. And the fact that you wanted to revisit that and reinforce it at this point in your life and your career, the things you did, like, for example, you mentioned going on this listening and learning tour. I wonder if you could talk about that, because I think the audience, even if they recognize that self-awareness is a key success factor, a lot of people struggle with, well, how do I do it? Do I sit in the room and meditate? Do I look in the mirror? But you actually reached out to your network, use that as a driver. So I wonder if you could describe that process a little bit for me.
Yeah, thank you. So it literally was reaching out to the network. I'm a big believer in venture. You always want to listen to customers. You want to listen to pain. You want to listen to feedback, because that currency is incredibly valuable, truly listening. So I applied that same principle to my own life. I really want to listen. I want to open myself up, and the outpouring was incredible. You have folks that have been with you a long time on the journey, folks that you don't know as well, even additional people that have heard about what you're doing, reaching out, peers in the industry. So it really was being quite open to pause, to listen, first to listen. And obviously I had some ideas myself and what my superpowers are as an individual. I've got weaknesses, but I've also got strengths. Listening to how others perceive you, your superpowers, your value, your contributions, and then really crystallizing, having that time by yourself and working with a coach. I do advise working with a coach to help structure some of your thinking, to then crystallize your values, your principles. What are the things that really define you that you want to take forward into your next role, next career, next chapter? So that's really how I did it. I had a lot of conversations, and patterns were starting to emerge in those conversations.
Let me ask you about that. Did you hear anything that surprised you, or did you hear some things that maybe you didn't want to hear? And how did you react to that?
Yeah, I think the surprising was just the impact that I've had in this venturing community. You hear it from peers that you may not have interacted with. Everybody wants affirmation at some level. So I think that was incredibly powerful to get from folks that I don't know as well, that have really just affirmed the impact that I've had in the industry, which was a powerful driver for helping me figure out what I wanted to do next. It was important to hear that feedback. The surprising parts are the impact you have on people's lives. I like to think of myself as a leader. It's not just about the what, it's about the how. It's about leaving a legacy. It's about stewardship. It's about making the right impact. So what has been really humbling is, because I reached out to folks right across my network, people that I've led, people I've reported to, mentors, and a whole group of different people. getting some of that recognition and some of the challenge to say, look, you can do this. You've got this, you're thinking in the right way. It was a healthy tension of reinforcing some of my beliefs, but also challenging me positively to make the right decisions and encouraging me to take that bold step into that next chapter. So it was a nice mix of being challenged, but also being affirmed.
I think it's also a testament to the relationships that you've developed with these people over the years, that they would be so open to you. And, the point about impact, one thing I found through doing these episodes and my own personal experiences is sometimes you don't even realize the impact you're having trying to do the day-to-day and the right things and get the business results, and you're juggling 100 things like a master chef in the kitchen preparing a big banquet. Sometimes it's the little things you do that have the biggest impact on people, and that's what they remember long-term about working with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I did to prepare for this podcast is I reached out to 7 team members that I've led throughout my career, different roles, different companies. And I literally just asked them, I said, please, can you share a lesson that you learned from me and perhaps a story that brings that lesson to life? That was the only direction I gave to the 7 team members. And that in itself was cathartic. Just hearing from them the impact that I'd made, the stories, the lessons was incredibly valuable. And I'll share those lessons today. I wanted to be authentic. And that's part of what I believe is important in leadership. We spoke about self-awareness. It's being authentic. It's being vulnerable. I sent out the request to the team and said, look, share some of the lessons that you've learned from me. I'm going to share those today.
I definitely want you to share the lessons, but I want to give a preview. I actually saw the lessons in advance, just so everyone knows. What I found fascinating about the stories that people told you that they remember is there wasn't a single number in this. There was nothing about hitting a target or winning a multi-million-dollar contract or increasing margin or accelerating growth rates. There were absolutely no numbers in anything that they remember that made an impact. What they talked about was how you helped them as a person, whether it was through their career, their personal life, through coaching, mentoring, through supporting. It was really about the relationship that you had with them and how you made them a better person. And I thought that was a very profound scenario, that it's not about the numbers, it's about the relationship.
I appreciate that. That's wonderful insight. I like to think of leadership as stewardship. How can you truly care and make an impact on the lives of people you work with? That's ultimately the legacy I want to leave behind. How have I helped people, contributed to the community, to society, to the companies I've worked with, to the clients I've engaged with? Once again, a heartfelt thank you to the 7 who have contributed to this. I really appreciate it.
By the way, I said that numbers weren't mentioned, but all those numbers happened.
Yeah.
I mean, you were the top revenue generator. You drove the company to growth rates that they never had before. You got their largest contracts. So all those things happened. Well, what I found interesting in all the episodes I've done so far is you can be a people-oriented leader, but you don't have to take your foot off the gas, rather, to achieve top results, stretch the team, to set lofty goals and get them working out of their comfort zone. Having a softer style of leadership doesn't mean you're not holding the team accountable or not being aggressive with goal setting and making sure people adhere to achieving those goals.
100%. It's the balance. Exactly right. We'll talk about some of those lessons. The soft side is as important as the hard side, if not even more important, but it's showing that you truly care. You're being self-aware, you're being vulnerable, you're being authentic. and you're leading with purpose. There's really purpose behind your leadership.
One thing I'd like to explore is the retreat you went on, because that was a cathartic experience for you. You were out in nature and with a trained coach, but you also spent a lot of time on your own. When you came up with the conclusion that you wanted to start your own business, that by itself is a huge decision. You worked for some major corporations over your career, so going out on your own is dramatically different. So you made that decision. You also decided what the name of your firm should be called. That wasn't something the coach told you, correct? I mean, it wasn't like he sat in the room and you talked, he said, Mark, this is what you should be doing, right?
So the time alone was really, and people use different techniques, meditation, prayer, a hike. So I did a 6-hour hike. Stephen dropped me off at the Tumelo Falls in Bend, Oregon. Beautiful place, as I said earlier.
Did you have your Find My Phone feature on?
I did. And it was just beautiful because Stephen, there was such certainty because he dropped me off at 8 and he said, Mark, I'm going to be there to collect you at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So I had this time to myself. I'm a hustler. Everyone gets busy. I just don't think we give ourselves those gifts too often. And I really so grateful that I did, to actually just pause, reflect, and truly give myself the chance to immerse myself in nature and just think. And the hike was just so powerful because the first phase of the hike was gorgeous. We had all these waterfalls, and being someone that's driven, I had some folks pass me on the hike. Normally I would have been like head down going, hey, I can't let these people pass me. What's going on here? But I was quite happy to let them go because it was just this beautiful gift of soaking myself, meditating, looking at the waterfalls. Waterfalls are so powerful to me. It just shows abundance. It shows creation. Creation's a very, very powerful thing. When you tap into the power of an abundant mindset, anything is possible. And that just gets reinforced when you're in nature waterfalls that just keep flowing. They don't stop flowing. The river current keeps flowing. It's ongoing. And that's really the essence of it.
Very motivating. It's very,
it is motivating. To me, I often think of growth mindset and leadership. I'd like to think of myself as somebody that's growth minded. I like it when leaders really lean into be growth minded instead of being sort of protectionist, just focusing on the core. It's like, how do you really advance your thinking? How do you grow? Don't just focus on the one pizza, make another pizza. So that first phase was amazing. It was almost the honeymoon of the hike. And then, as with life, I'm following all trails, get a little bit lost, get a little bit nervous going, oh, is this the right path? I'm trying to track, watching my phone, and my battery was getting low. So I thought, okay, I know Stephen's going to be there. I know the car park is certain. I know this is a loop. So if I get lost, I'll be okay. I know where the path is. I know where the path leads. And then on the way back, I saw 2 guides on the other side of the river, and I knew I had to get across the river, and it was a little precarious. I had to sort of balance on a few logs across this river. But once I saw the guides, I knew that was the right way to go. And that really struck me as the importance of having guides, mentors, those folks in your life that really just help you get back on the path, give you direction, give you counsel, give you support, give you encouragement. So once I saw the 2 hikers, I was like, okay, I know that I need to get that side. Once I saw the path again, it was okay, just stick on the path and then you get the signs along the way. Tumelo Falls, 3 miles to go. Those are all important signs on the...
Feel that whole experience with nature, doing hard things out of your comfort zone. Did that give you the self-confidence to maybe, as you looked at your career decision, to do some things in your career journey that were going to be out of the comfort zone? It's like, well, I can do this.
Yes, absolutely.
I know what to look for. I know what I'm capable of. I know when to ask for help.
I think you said it beautifully. I think that's exactly what the hike sort of represented metaphorically for me in my own journey. It was this reminder that you have these honeymoon phases, you have the waterfalls, and then you go a little bit off piste. You're going to have some detours, but it's part of life. It's making mistakes. It's figuring out, then getting back on the path. But you know the path. Once you're on the path, you know where the path leads. The other reminder when I was on the second leg of the hike was to look up. Sometimes we get so busy, you look down, you get caught up in the busyness. It was just such a beautiful reminder to look up, look around, appreciate this gorgeous landscape, this gorgeous environment, and also have trust that I knew I had the time, I had my watch, I was certainty that I would get to the car park and just to enjoy it. I think sometimes in the hustle and bustle of life and our careers, we sometimes lose, we talk about it, smell the roses, be mindful of the moment. You don't want to lose some of those precious moments that you can enjoy along the journey.
If you equate being a successful business person or entrepreneur, which you are now, with athletics, and you talk to the most successful athletes, they will talk unequivocally about how much they enjoy the process of practicing and preparing. They love the game, not to diminish the experience of the game, but they love practicing much. It's enjoying that process, not just withholding your enjoyment till you get to the destination, but
Absolutely.
enjoy it every step of the way, whether it's practicing or you're in the first game of a 162 game season, or if you're the last game of the World Series. Enjoy every moment of it.
100% right. It's very good advice for sure.
That's great. That whole process really led you to this decision, or the name of the company. In one sense, you could argue that name is a perfect fit and it was always in front of you, but you had to realize that for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And then you're seeing rocks and waterfalls and stones, and you're having discussions about a launch pad and catalyst and ecosystems. And so it just really crystallized all my thinking through this process.
Well, that's great. I think we should talk about the key lessons that you picked up, because I got a preview of them and I think they're relevant to any leader. If you could share that with us, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, sure. No, thank you. So the first lesson is from someone I work very closely with. She was actually my executive assistant. The first lesson is integrity is the foundation. We speak a lot about integrity. And she shared a story where in booking my flight, she always knew that I like to either be on a sort of an aisle seat close to the front or a window seat. But she found out that I had sat right back in the plane. And that intrigued her. She asked me and said, why did you end up sitting right at the back? You normally like to get off quickly. You got meetings. And I shared with her, I said, well, I actually gave up my seat. There was a disabled passenger who wanted to sit with their friends. So I gave up my seat and I went to sit at the back. To me, it was an obvious decision. But what's powerful with that is that left an incredible impression on this person, in that it showed my integrity. It showed that when nobody's watching, and integrity really is the backbone of trust.
Mm-hmm.
And this really made an impression on her. So that's lesson number one. Integrity is the foundation. And we speak a lot about integrity. Yes, the definition, I believe, of integrity is do what you say you will do. But I do like this lesson of when nobody is watching, if it is the invisible backbone of trust, what are you doing? How are you making decisions? How are you leading? And what impact does that have on people that you work with?
Great lesson. I would agree that it probably starts there at integrity. What's the second lesson?
So the second one is empathy creates safety and loyalty. So another colleague shared during a difficult period at work, bit to what you said earlier, that you didn't see any numbers in any of the lessons. This was really me focusing less on the results, but truly focusing on the people within the team and really showing that I cared, because I'm genuinely somebody that cares. So helping support each other, bringing in the right resources, and really making myself available in a difficult situation. So empathy isn't soft. It truly is putting yourself in other people's positions. It really does sustain people through tough times. And as a result, it drives loyalty and resilience. So to me, the lesson is empathy creates safety and loyalty.
Great. Let's keep going. Lesson 3.
Lesson number 3. So this is unlocking potential by believing in others. Early in my career, I was recruiting for a position and found this incredibly talented individual. By his own admission at the time, was perhaps a little bit green for the role. He was a little inexperienced, but I just saw amazing potential in him. We joke sort of even after the interview is I could just see the potential. He would also agree that perhaps wasn't exactly ready for the role, but I really believed in him. And I think what he shared with me in this lesson is it was a stretch opportunity. It was a high visibility role, but I gave him room to stumble. I gave him constructive feedback. I was there every step of the way. And he later told me that this transformed his career and his leadership style as a result. So it really is believing in others, even when perhaps they don't believe in themselves. That's the power of attracting talent with potential, but giving them the room and the space to grow and to find their own style, their own rhythm, and obviously give them all the support along the journey.
Yeah, an earlier guest said that good leaders manage people and great leaders develop future great leaders.
Beautiful.
That's really the difference between being a good leader and a great leader. Talent is such an important asset. So I love that lesson.
Then lesson number 4 is be tough, but fair. And everybody has their own style in this particular lesson. I used a lot of care and humor. Everyone has their own style, but in this lesson, the person that was part of my team relayed some of the humor we used around this particular situation. So he went through a difficult situation when a senior executive, the client criticized his work. He saw it as harsh. He took the lesson as it was harsh. Mm-hmm. But I reframed it with him to say, look, it's tough feedback, but it's fair. Some of the feedback is fair. And that helped him shift his thinking. Rather than feeling attacked, he sort of really embraced this tough but fair. And obviously part of it I was very caring. I gave him the feedback. I gave him the support and unexpected recognition. From that feedback, he produced incredible work and really turned it around. And as a result, I gave him a lot of recognition for that work. It was a complex piece of work. And I injected a lot of humor into the situation, which made the workplace lighter. And he really remembers the humor and the care on that particular lesson. So once again, there are times you have to be tough but fair, but added with care and humor. I often say to people, play the ball, not the man or the woman.
That's such a valuable lesson because the way the world works, and no one bats 1,000. Not everything goes the way you want. It's important to be able to learn from bad outcomes or missed expectations. If you could take some lessons away so you could do better the next time, then the bad becomes a positive.
No, 100% agree. And then lesson number 5 is the power of the player coach. And I really like this lesson because I've always been a leader that I never wanted to sit in an ivory tower and sort of bark out commands. I've always been someone that wants to roll up my sleeves, get into the trenches with my team. So I think this concept of being the player coach is very important. Obviously, you have to strike the right balance. There are times where you are the player coach, but there's also times where you got to step back and really drive with the strategy and the vision. This team member relayed that I was able to really support where support was needed and to show the way. It's a difficult role, but then also step back and provide vision and strategy to the team. In this team, we had a lot of different personalities. So he used the analogy in his lesson. A sports analogy is he's a big soccer or football fan. And it really is this player coach. So you can play the game, obviously, but there's times where you got to play it, you got to support the team. There's times when you got to be the coach. And obviously within any team, there are lots of different personalities. It's how do you harness the chemistry of the team amongst those different personalities? So it's being player and coach, but also being credible in the trenches, but also being confident enough in yourself to guide from the sidelines. So to take yourself out of the situation and to guide as a coach would on the sidelines.
That last point, sometimes that's a tough point because if the leader has the wherewithal to jump in and help the team accomplish a job, that's obviously a good thing, but they also have to resist doing all the work for them. Even if someone's struggling, they still have to get the job done, knowing when to hold back and let people get the job done and be successful.
Absolutely. Then lesson number 6, also really like this one from a colleague way back in my career, spoke about vision, belief, and extreme ownership.
Okay.
So this was also during their formative stages. They had just completed their MBA, and they remembered my optimism and belief that really built their confidence. Part of what he relayed in this particular lesson was my selfless drive for other success. I'm a big believer in that. You define through the success of others. So really, once again, the lesson of empathy, putting yourself in others' shoes. How can you be selfless towards their own success? I also demonstrated extreme ownership that raised everybody's standards. There was no excuses when things got difficult. It was, look, we're going to solve this. We're going to hold ourselves accountable. The vision that I showed, that he relayed, that I showed to see complex problems as solvable puzzles. So how do you break up this complex into little parts and then help others in the team understand that and then develop that skill? He said this was very formative for his own career and his own style to take some of these techniques forward. So in this case, true leadership blends vision, belief, obviously belief in the team, and ownership, which creates an impact far beyond the leader's own role.
Okay. I guess there's one more, number 7, right?
Yeah, the final lesson. So this was an interesting one. I really like this one because once again, this is all credit to the 7 team members that I reached out to. I like this lesson in that this was actually working with the client. Leadership's not always just about managing direct team members, even colleagues in work, even if it's a matrix, even if it's direct or indirect. This was actually a lesson working with the client. And the lesson is leading through thought leadership and education. So once again, we were meeting with the client and really using that opportunity to put myself in the client's position. And once again, empathy, not looking to sell, not looking to solve, but really looking to help guide them. And that showed up as thought leadership because I understand the topic and the industry. I really wanted to really educate and help them. That was new to the role. So this was very powerful for this colleague of mine in that it helped them find clarity and confidence so they could see how I was educating others and leading them to the right solutions. It wasn't about pushing an answer to lead them to understanding. It was about really getting them to understand the decisions that they needed to make as the client and give them the clarity that they needed. And I think the takeaway from this is great leaders don't impose certainty. They created for others by guiding them with thought leadership and education so that they can come to that place themselves.
The client has to own the decision, be responsible for whatever the strategy or the project is. So you have to give them content and the tools to be able to understand the decision and to support it and to own it.
Yeah, so it's just a nice reminder that leadership manifests in all different ways. You can manage up, you can lead up with clients, you can educate. Leadership never turns off. It's just how do you embrace some of these principles and values and use those in different situations.
You don't need a direct line from the person up to you in a hierarchical chart to be a leader. Like you said, it's a lot of different relationships, and we've used the phrase leadership is a mindset, not a title.
Good.
Yeah, great. Well, Mark, those are amazing lessons. I think there's a lot of actionable takeaways that our audience can start to do immediately to improve their own leadership style. It's unfortunate that we're just about out of time here. I think for purposes of the audience and their interest in staying in touch with you, it would be great if you could give them some contact information so if they want to keep up with your journey and as you start the Launchstone venture, how can they stay in touch?
Yeah, thank you, Art. So they can get me on LinkedIn or they can get me on my email. Do you want me to give my email address?
If you're comfortable with that, go for it. Mhm.
So it's marksimoncelli@gmail.com.
Okay, perfect. Well, I think you're going to have a lot more followers as a result of this. And I know I'm going to stay in touch and look forward to great new things coming out and some great innovations and value add to the economy and society. So, Mark, best of luck to you.
Thank you so much, Art. And it's really been a joy to join you again. And thank you for all that you've contributed to my career over the years. I sincerely appreciate that as well.
It's been my pleasure, Mark. I can't emphasize that enough. And it was my pleasure to spend the time with you today and to have you share your journey with the audience. I want to thank our listeners and our followers again for joining us and for your continued support. And until the next episode of Leadership Art, this is your host, Art Robbins. And remember, it's your lead.